Good day, everyone. We are the fourth group of reporters, and we will be reporting about social issues in the environment, environmental ethics, and Philippine environmental law. So, kung mapapansin niyo sa topics namin, connected sila sa isa't isa, in which pwede natin silang i-correlate dito sa picture. So, kung makikita nyo, mayroong mga development na nangyayari within the environment. So, kasi sa isang development, siyempre involved yung mga tao dyan, in which yung mga tao pwede nilang maapektuhan din yung environment. So, pag naapektuhan nila yung environment, pwedeng magkaroon ng positive or negative impacts. Dito, nag start yung mga social issues natin within the environment. So, with that being said, connected na dito yung environmental ethics and yung mga environmental law. So, sa environmental ethics, alam natin na pagdating sa ethics, yun yung knowledge natin to do what is right. So, if you apply it within the environment, yun yung knowledge natin to do what is right within the environment. So, meron pa tayong ibang sinusunod when it comes to the environment, which is yung mga environmental laws. Ginagawa natin sila kasi nga, sila yung nag-guide sa atin to do what is right, to do what is allowed. So, to go on with our report, here is the first topic. So, we have the social issues in the environment. For the first social issue, we have sustainable development. So, sustainable development is defined as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. So, as we know nga kanina sinabi ko, yung human beings, involved sila sa galaw, yung galaw nila involved sa development. So, um, yung human beings naapektuhan nila both ang natural and social world which could lead to development. Kaya lang, yung development na to, pwede rin siyang magkaroon ng negative effect sa resources natin in which pwede magkaroon ng overexploitation, pwede magkaroon ng pollution, at which, pag nangyari yun, hindi magiging sustainable yung mga resources natin and hindi natin sila ma-hand over. Kasi, yung development, dapat holistic siya. Navo-view siya as holistic. Dapat naiisip natin yung benefits nito sa atin and even the future generation. So, pag sinabing sustainable development, dapat yung resources natin, pwede natin silang ipasa sa future generations. Dapat yung resources natin pwedeng ma-regenerate. So, ano nga ba yung aspects sa sustainable development? We have the intergenerational equity and the intragenerational equity. So, sa intergenerational equity, dito minimize yung adverse impacts or yung mga negative effects sa resources natin. Kasi, tulad ng sinabi ko kanina, merong pwede magkaroon ng overexploitation, pwede magkaroon ng pollution, and even sa, even sa mga factors na nakaka-affect sa resources natin, like yung mga waste. So, dito, dapat na na-ensure natin na yung resources natin, hindi sila maapektuhan. Dapat available pa rin sila for, para ma-hand over natin sila sa future generation. Tapos, sa intra-generational equity naman, dito minimize yung wealth gaps within nations. Kasi nga, di ba, mayroong mga countries na nasa taas, ano sila, maayos yung state nila. Tapos meron din naman tayong mga countries na minsan tinatawag silang poor countries in which laganap yung mga problema sa kanila. 'Di ba sa mga poor countries, pwedeng meron silang problems within farming like droughts, pwede ring meron silang problem within the people like wala silang vaccines, pwede ring problems within diseases, ganon. So dito, ang ginagawa is ina-address yung mga problems na ganon ginahanapan sila ng solutions in order for those countries na um, umakyat yung state nila para yung wealth gap mabawasan. Tapos, minsan, para magpantay din sa ibang countries. Kasi, yung mga wealth gap, pag nababawasan sila or like, um, kumukonti na lang yung wealth gaps, mas nagkakaroon ng sustainability kasi nga nababawasan yung mga problems within a country and mas tumataas yung economic growth nila. So, ano nga ba yung measures na ginagawa for sustainable development? We have the following. So, first is using the appropriate technology. Yung sa appropriate technology, ito yung technology na ito yung naa-adapt natin locally, eco-friendly siya, and efficient siya pagdating sa resources. Ang example nito is indigenous technologies. Kasi yung indigenous technologies, more useful siya, cost-effective, and sustainable. And with that being said, yung mga positive factors niya, mas less yung resources na na-use niya and mas less din yung waste na napoproduce. So, next naman is yung adopting the GRs. Dito, aware naman tayong lahat which is the reduce, reuse, recycle. So, dito, nami-minimize yung paggamit ng resources. Tapos, yung sa reuse naman, yung paggamit sa kanila ng ulit-ulit. Halimbawa, yung mga reusable cups na ginagamit natin. So, sa pag-reuse natin ng mga cups na ginagamit natin, mas nababawasan yung waste kasi nga ginagamit natin sila ulit. Sa pag-recycle naman, yung mga plastic bottles na malalaki, pwede silang ginagawang paso. So, hindi lang nababawasan yung waste, minsan yung mga dapat ng waste, nagkakaroon pa sila ng new purpose. So, mas nagiging sustainable yung way of living. Tapos sa next naman is yung promoting environmental education and awareness. Dito, at a young age, napopromote na yung awareness about sa environment. So sa pag-promote ng awareness na to, mas nagkakaroon ng sense of belongingness yung bata. And also, mas nagkakaroon siya ng sense of responsibility para maging aware sa kung anong dapat gawin sa isang environment and ano pa ang dapat gawin para mas mag-improve ito and mapanatili yung sustainability. So, next naman is yung resource utilization as per carrying capacity. So, yung carrying capacity kasi, yun yung kakayahan ng isang bagay para i-carry out niya yung isang task. Like, kunwari, yung isang bagay. Meron lang siyang limited number na meron siyang limited number na kayang i-sustain. So, dito sa measure na to, meron siyang dalawa pang components in which it is the supporting capacity and assimilative capacity. So, yung supporting capacity, ito yung capacity ng isang bagay para mag-regenerate. Halimbawa, yung mga crops, pagka hinarvest sila, pwede pa silang mag-regenerate. Tapos, yung sa assimilative capacity naman, ito yung ability na mag-tolerate ng different stresses. Like, halimbawa, sa rivers, kunwari, nagkaroon ng mild infestations or mild bacterial problems. So, minsan, for example, yung river na yon meron siyang capability na self-heal. Like, kunwari, yung mismong pH levels niya, magkakaroon ng changes para maging para maayos yung yung mga bacteria problems, ganon. So, kung yung dalawang capacity na to, a-achieve sila, pwedeng magkaroon ng sustainability. Kasi nga, yung mga problems na nape-prevent nila or na-address nila agad. So, nagkakaroon ng possibility na mag-regenerate, mas nagiging sustainable yung mga resources natin. So for our next social issue, we have the water conservation. So water being one of the most precious and indispensable resources needs to be conserved. So, aware naman tayong lahat na nagkakaroon na ng water shortages. So, limited na lang din yung water sa ibang lugar. So, dapat mag-start na talagang i-conserve yung water kasi nga nagiging limited na siya. So, ito yung mga strategies for water conservation. We have decreasing runoff losses. So, decreasing runoff losses, more on ang ginagawa dito is um, nagkakaroon ng mga parang application sa mga landforms and waterforms. Nagkakaroon ng, for example, mga contour cultivation, mga bench terracing, water spreading, channeling, lagoon traveling, chemical wetting, mga ganon. So, para mas maintindihan natin, ang example nito yung mga bench terracing. Halimbawa, yung Banawe Rice Terraces, di ba? Kaya ganun yung naging design niya para mas madaligan ng maayos yung mga crops. So, ganun yung sa parang thought sa decreasing runoff losses. Yung mga ina-apply sa mga water forms and landforms, ginagawa yun para ma-conserve yung water, para mas maipon yung water. So, dito, meron ding mga water storages. Siyempre, para makolek yung water, merong storage like yung mga ponds and yung mga wells, yung mga balon para makolek yung water. So, next naman is yung reducing evaporation losses. So, dito, more on nag apply ng mga chemicals para mabawasan yung evaporation and mas magkaroon ng availability of water. So, ina-apply dito mostly is yung horizontal barrier of asphalt, tapos yung copolymer of starch and acrylonitrile. So, dito kasi yung sa asphalt, mas nagkakaroon ng increased water availability. Tapos, ganun din sa copolymer of starch and acrylonitrile. Pero, dito kasi yung copolymer na to, nag-absorb siya ng water 4,000 times its weight. Kaya, mas lalang nagkakaroon ng water availability. Sa next naman is the storing water in soil. Kasi 'di ba yung mga lupa, lalo na 'pag tinataniman dinidiligan yan para magkaroon siya ng enough water. Tapos, minsan din, 'di ba magkakaroon ng cropping seasons. Minsan, hindi magtatanim yung mga farmers para yung soil makaipon muna siya ng enough water para para masupplyan niya yung buong taniman. So, habang di sila nagtatanim, magkakaroon ng maiipon yung tubig. So, sa next cropping season niya, pag nagtanim siya, meron ng enough water. So, pag hindi niya pagtanim, ako-conserve muna yung water for the next crop. So, sa next strategy naman is the reducing irrigation losses. So, dito, gumagamit ng lined canals. Kasi 'di ba, pag hindi lined yung canals, pwedeng yung water mag-go siya sa ibang direction. So, nasasayang yung tubig. So, if lined yung canals mo, alam mo kung saan lang dadalo yung tubig. Tapos, irrigation din early in the morning or late in the evening. Kasi, um, 'di ba pag nagdidilig tayo, morning lang din or hapon. Kasi, if tanghali or mainit, pwedeng magkaroon ng evaporation even if naka-irrigate yung water natin. So, mas better if morning or gabi para less yung evaporation. Mas mako-conserve natin yung water. So, next naman is yung reuse of water. Dito, aware naman tayo lahat sa pag-reuse ng water. Halimbawa, yung pinagbanlawan natin, yung gray water from washings. Pwede natin siyang gamitin na panglinis ng cars, gano'n. O kaya panglinis ng mga floorings. Tapos, pwede rin na yung treated wastewater. Pwede siyang gamitin as fertility irrigation. So, next naman is yung preventing wastage of water. Ito yung pinaka-common na strategy for conserving water. Halimbawa, yung mga open faucets, isasara natin sila para hindi sayang ng tubig. Or like, if may sirang tubo, syempre gagawin natin agad kasi nga, if hindi gagawin agad, yung water maglilik siya. So, hindi natin mako-conserve yung water. So, next naman is yung increasing block pricing. So, dito, ito yung pagtaas ng price ng water. Ito yung water bill. So, pag mas mataas or pag mas mahal yung pricing, syempre mas magtitipid tayo kasi nga if hindi tayo magtitipid, tataas masyado yung bills natin and masyado siyang mahal. So, mas nako-conserve yung water kasi nga nagtitipid tayo. So, that would be all for my part.
Rainwater harvesting is an important technique to conserve water and recharge groundwater sources, especially in today's world where natural open spaces have been replaced by concrete buildings, roads, and footpaths. Due to rapid urbanization and deforestation, rainwater no longer gets a chance to seep into the ground, which leads to a decline in the groundwater level and increase the risk of flooding during rains. Rainwater harvesting helps solve these problems by collecting and storing rainwater. This water can either be stored for future use or allowed to seep into the ground through specially designed structures like dug wells, recharge pits, and check dams. This process, known as artificial recharge, helps increase the groundwater table. The main objectives of rainwater harvesting are: first is to reduce the loss of rainwater as surface runoff. Second, to prevent waterlogging and road flooding during heavy rains. Third, to meet the growing demand for water in urban and rural areas. Fourth, to increase the groundwater level by recharging underground water sources. Rainwater harvesting techniques. In rainwater harvesting techniques, there are two methods: the traditional method and the modern methods. In traditional methods, rainwater is collected from rooftops and stored in lakes, ponds, and tanks. Rain is also collected from nipa, kogon, or bamboo roofs and directed into earthen jars or bamboo containers, which is common in the rural areas for washing. Rice terraces in the Cordilleras also function as rainwater catchment, managing water for irrigation in a sustainable way. In upland farming areas, harvested rainwater is stored and channeled through bamboo pipes to slowly drip onto crops. Second is the modern methods. In modern methods, there are two main techniques, which is the storing water on the surface for later use and recharging groundwater using specially constructed systems such as pits, which is a small hose filled with stones and sands to help water seep underground. These are 1 to 2 meter wide and 3 meter depth. Next is trenches. It is a long, narrow channels that help water flow into the ground, about 0.5 to 1 meter wide and 1 to 1.5 meter depth and up to 20 meter long trenches. Next is dug wells. Old wells used to allow filtered rainwater to percolate. Next is spreading techniques. Water is spread in open areas like streams or ponds using check dams and bunds to let it soak into the ground. In cities, rooftops and roads can be used to collect rainwater, which is directed into recharge pits or tanks. Government organizations like the National Water Resource Board are promoting this method to ensure water sustainability for the future. Rainwater harvesting is a simple, cost-effective, and eco-friendly solution to the water crisis and should be adopted wisely. Watershed management is the planned use and conservation of land and water resources within a watershed area to ensure sustainable development, protect the environment, and improve the lives of people living there. A watershed is a natural area of land where all the rainwater, snowmelt, and fog collect and drain into a common water body like a river, lake, or ocean. It stores water in surface bodies like ponds and lakes, as well as underground in the soil. The water eventually flows out through rivers, streams, or seeps into the ground. Watersheds can be affected or degraded by human activities such as deforestation, overgrazing, mining, construction, and unsustainable farming, leading to soil erosion, reduced water availability, and natural disasters like floods and landslides. An example of watershed in the Philippines is the Angat watershed. Watershed management aims to use land and water resources wisely for maximum benefit, restore the national ecological balance, prevent soil erosion and improve water retention, reduce the risk of floods, droughts, and landslides, support useful activities like irrigation, drinking water supply, and electricity generation. Next is the key practices. Next is the key practices in watershed management. First is water harvesting, storing rainwater through structures like check dams, percolation tanks, and wells to use in dry seasons and recharge groundwater. Second is afforestation and agroforestry, planting trees and crops together to prevent soil erosion, retain moisture, and maintain fertility. In the Philippines, planting native trees like Nara, Malave, and Ipil-Ipil to support biodiversity, which is used by indigenous people. Third is mechanical methods. Using techniques like terracing, which is in the caldera region, particularly in Ifugao, the Banawe rice terraces are a prime example of traditional terracing. These ancient terraces have been used for centuries to farm rice on steep mountain slopes, effectively reducing soil erosion and managing water runoff. Next is banding. In irrigated rice areas of central Luzon, such as Nueva Ecija, farmers construct earthen bands around rice paddies to retain water and prevent surface runoff. This also helps in water management and reduces soil loss during the rainy season. Next is bench terracing. In Bukidnon and parts of Mindoro, bench terracing is practiced in slope corn and vegetable farms. These techniques involves cutting flat areas into hillsides, allowing more effective planting and reducing water runoff and erosion on steep land. Next is no-till farming. In southern Mindanao, particularly Davao del Sur, some banana and corn farmers have adopted no-till farming techniques. By avoiding plowing, they preserve soil structure, reduce erosion, and maintain organic matter in the soil. Next is contour cropping. In Leyte and Negros Occidental, contour cropping is used in upland areas where farmers plant crops such as cassava or maize along the natural contours of the land. This helps slow water flow and minimize soil displacement. Next is strip cropping. In parts of Iloilo and Cebu, strip cropping is used in sloping areas where farmers alternate rows of corn and legumes to reduce erosion. The legumes also improve soil fertility through nitrogen fixation. For the fourth key practices is the scientific mining and quarrying, controlling the negative effects of mining by stabilizing soil with trenches, vegetation, and proper drainage systems to prevent erosion and landslide. Example is the La Mesa watershed, which has the method of terracing, retaining walls, and controlled blasting reduce erosion and landslide risk. Fifth is public participation. Involving local communities is crucial. People help protect planted areas, maintain water structures, and ensure the success of conservation projects. The DENR and LGUs conduct information, education, and communication campaigns to raise awareness about the importance of watersheds and to encourage local participation in tree planting and monitoring. The communities are expected to be motivated for protecting a freshly planted area, maintaining water harvesting structures implemented by the government or NGOs, and properly education the people. Resettlement and rehabilitation refer to the processes of relocating people who are displaced due to development projects like dam construction, mining, or the creation of national parks and helping them rebuild their lives. Many large-scale development projects in India and around the world, while beneficial in the long term, often force native or tribal communities to leave their ancestral lands. These peoples are generally poor, lack education, and depend heavily on natural resources for their survival. Displacement leads to the loss of their homes, livelihood, culture, and social support systems, making rehabilitation a major socioeconomic challenge. Problems and concerns regarding the resettlement and rehabilitation is first, displacement due to dams, which is the large dams, especially river valley projects, displace thousands of people. Example of displacement due to dams in the Philippines is the Kaliwa Dam project in Quezon and Rizal provinces. The dam threatens to displace hundreds of families, especially from the indigenous Tumagat, Remontado communities who live in the Sierra Madre mountain range. It will submerge parts of their ancestral domain, which includes homes, farms, and sacred sites. People lost homes, agricultural land, and traditional livelihoods like fishing and farming. Next is displacement due to mining. Mining operations take up large areas of land, forcing native communities to move. An example of displacement due to mining in the Philippines is the case of Didipio Gold and Copper Mine in Barangay Didipio, Cebu, Nueva Vizcaya, operated by Oceana Gold Corporation. Indigenous communities, particularly the Ifugao and Bugkalot peoples, were displaced or negatively affected by land conversion and the influx of mining operations. Residents reported forced evictions, destruction of agricultural lands, and limited access to clean water due to mining activities. Local opposition intensified, leading to protests, legal battles, and eventually a temporary suspension of the mining operations in 2019. The Philippine government later renewed Oceana Gold's contract in 2021, which sparked further resistance from environmental and indigenous rights groups. Next is displacement due to national parks. Creating national parks is important for wildlife and forest conservation, but declaring an area as a core zone restricts local people's access to forest resources. This can lead to resentment, illegal activities, and conflicts between conservation and human needs. The major issues in resettlement and rehabilitations are: first, tribal communities suffer the most as they are already economically and socially vulnerable, and displacement often breaks families apart and women and children are especially affected. Next is many displaced people are not familiar with modern markets, making it hard for them to earn a living in new areas. Next is they lost their traditional culture such as folk songs, dances, festivals, and social costumes. Next is most importantly, they face loss of identity and a deep emotional disconnection from their homeland.
Good day everyone, I am Miling Tolentino and I will be discussing the environmental ethics. So with the rapid increase in the world's population, the consumption of natural resources has increased several times. This has degraded our planet's ability to provide the services we need. The consumption of resources is going at a faster rate than they can naturally replenish. Environmental ethics. So this is a branch of ethics that studies the relation of human beings and the environment and how ethics play a role in this. Environmental ethics believes that humans are a part of society as well as other living creatures such as plants and animals. So these items are very important part of the world and are considered to be functional part of human life. Therefore, it is essential that every human being respected and honor these and use morals and ethics when dealing with these creatures. So it is a key features of environmental studies that establish the relationship between humans and Earth. With environmental ethics, we can ensure that we are doing our part to keep the environment safe and protected. Next is we have the environmental ethics and its principle. So many theories have emerged over the years and each one has stressed on various principles of environmental ethics. The list below states all the principles that have been predominantly found in those theories. First, we have the anthropocentrism. So it suggested that human beings are the most important beings. All other beings or all other living beings are but accessories that would assist in their survival. So we have two further divisions of anthropocentrism. First, we have the weak and we have the strong anthropocentrism. So the weak anthropocentrism believes that human beings are the center because it is only through their perspective that environmental situation can be interpreted. While the strong anthropocentrism, however, believes that human beings are the center because they rightfully deserve to be there. Peter Vardy made this distinction. Next, we have the non-anthropocentrism. So, as opposed to the first one, this principle gives value to every object, every animal in nature. So, it's principle that believes in everything that sustains itself in nature. So, the third one, we have the psychocentrism. So, it is the principle that believes that human beings hold more value in the environment since their mental capacity are better developed and far more complex than any other element in the environment. The fourth one is the biocentrism. It is a term that holds not only an ecological but also a political value. It is a philosophy that imparts importance to all living beings. In terms of environmental ethics, biocentrism is the principle that ensures the proper balance of ecology on the planet. The fifth one is the holism. So the term holism had been coined by John Smuts in his book Holism and Evolution in the year 1926. So, holism considers the environment system as a whole rather than being individual parts of something. It considers this environment system to be valuable. The sixth one is the resourceism. So, this principle says that nature is considered to be valuable only because it has resources to provide with. Thus, nature ought to be exploited. The seventh one is the speciesism. So, this principle justifies the superiority of the human race. Thus, it also justifies the exploitation and maltreatment of animal by humankind.
Good day, everyone. My name is Crystal Maybe Salvador, and I'm here to report the number 7 under the environmental ethics and its principles. The number 7 is speciesism. The principle of speciesism is justifies the superiority of the human race. Thus, it also justifies the exploitation and maltreatment of animals by humankind. Number 8 is the moral considerability. This too is an important principle of environmental ethics. Intrinsic value is added to every being, which makes us consider being moral. Moral considerability towards a being means that we agree that all our interactions whatsoever with the being is bound by the moral laws. Number 9 is instrumental value. Simple as this is the instrumental value is the value imparted to be a being as long as it can serve us with the resources. Number 10 is intrinsic value. Intrinsic value is the value attached to being just for itself and not only for its resourcefulness. Number 11, aesthetic value. Aesthetic value is imparted to being by virtue of its looks or its beauty. Number 12, animal liberation or animal rights. As is evident from its name, animal liberation or rights try to secure animal life and ensure their welfare by enforcing certain laws. And lastly, under the environmental ethics and its principles, number 13 is the animal welfare. It ensures that the animals are treated well and humanely. So there are 3 types of environmental ethics, but with the emergence of several theories, several environmental ethics have emerged. While some protect human beings, others protect plants, animals, and other elements of nature. These are the types that includes in environmental ethics. The first one is social ecology, deep ecology, ecofeminism. So the first one is social ecology. So what is social ecology? Social ecology is the study of human beings and their relation to their environment. Number 2 is the deep ecology. Deep ecology promotes that all beings have an intrinsic value. And lastly, the ecofeminism is a branch of feminism that helps us look at Earth as a woman so that we can respect in a better way, like Mother Nature. Yeah.
Before we proceed to the Philippine environmental law, let us define first what is environmental law. First, environment. This is the surroundings or condition in which a person, animal, or plant lives or operates. The environment refers to the natural or man-made settings where individuals, animals, or plants exist and interact. Then law, this is the system of rules which a particular country or community recognizes as regulating the action of its members, and which it may enforce by the imposition of penalties. Law compromises the regulation and guidelines established by societies to govern behavior, maintain order, and provide a framework for resolving disputes through legal means. To combine it, environmental law refers to the law that protects the water, air, land, animals, and people. These are rules and regulation that protects the environment. Environmental law focuses on preserving and conserving natural resources, ensuring sustainable practices, and addressing environmental concerns to maintain a healthy ecosystem for current and future generations. For general environmental laws and policies, first we have Philippine Environmental Policy. This Presidential Decree number 1151 established on June 6, 1977 in the pursuit of advancing both the productive and harmonious relationship of nature and the Filipino people of today and the future. The Philippine Environmental Policy mandates an intensive and integrated national environmental protection program mainly by requiring environmental impact assessment and statements. Then, Philippine Environmental Impact Statement System in Presidential Decree number 1586 established on June 11, 1978.
This policy established the Philippine Environmental Impact Statement System or PEISS as the framework for all environmental impact assessment activities nationwide. In consonance with the Philippine Environmental Policy or PD 1151, the PEISS includes the classification of every development project as either environmentally critical or environmentally non-critical, or projects that can potentially cause any form of significant impact to the environment are regarded as environmentally critical and are therefore required to secure an Environmental Compliance Certificate or ECC. Then Strategic Environmental Plan for Palawan Act of 1992 or Republic Act No. 7611. The Strategic Environmental Plan or SEP is a comprehensive framework for the sustainable development of Palawan. All projects of government agencies from planning to implementation in the province should be coordinated and aligned to this framework. The main strategy here is to establish an Environmentally Critical Areas Network or ECAN, which is a graded system of protective control over all terrestrial and marine natural resources, as well as the tribal ancestral lands in Palawan. The Palawan Council for Sustainable Development (PCSD) was created to pursuant to this policy. Then Climate Change Act of 2009 or Republic Act No. 9729. In light of the climate vulnerability of the Philippines and its people, the Climate Change Act of 2009 integrates climate change adoption and mitigation strategies into policy formulation and development activities of all government agencies. It also created the Climate Change Commission, chaired by the President of the Republic of the Philippines, as the central entity of all climate change-related plans and programs in the country. Then Writ of Kalikasan, a rule of procedure for environmental cases AM number 0968SC established on April 29, 2010. The Writ of Kalikasan AM number 0968SC Rule 7 is one of the two special civil actions that any person or entity can avail of whenever their constitutional right to a balanced and healthy environmental is violated or threatened. The other civil action that can be availed is the right for continuing mandamus AM number 0968 SC Rule 8, which applies when a government agency or officer violates an environmental policy. Lastly, Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2010 or Republic Act number 10121, making the National Disaster Coordinating Council or NDCC into what we know today as the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council or NDRRMC to serve as the lead agency for disaster-related programs in the Philippines, such as but not limited to the development of the comprehensive guides for DRR efforts nationwide, referred to as the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Framework or NDRRMF, and National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Plan or NDRRMP.
Good day everyone. Today I will be discussing the major environmental laws and policies in the Philippines that govern waste management and pollution control. These laws are critical in ensuring the health of our ecosystems, communities, and future generations. So let's go through each law and explore its provisions, purpose, and impact. For the first one is the Philippine Sanitation Code or the Presidential Decree number 856 in the year 1975 of December 23. So this law establishes comprehensive sanitary standards across a variety of public and private domains in the Philippines, such as food establishments, water supply, schools, transport, terminals, and funeral services. It regulates environmental sanitation practices including hygiene, waste management, sewage disposal, and control of pollutants like noise and radiation. Its goal is to ensure that all facilities and services promote public health and minimize risks risk to the community. Example of a scenario is a restaurant is shut down by the local health office because it was operating without proper sanitation facilities and was found disposing of wastewater into a nearby creek without treatment. So this violates the law's provisions on industrial hygiene, food establishment standards, and proper sewage disposal. The sanitation code ensures businesses do not endanger public health through unsanitary practices. The next one is the Marine Pollution Decree of 1976, or the Presidential Decree number 979 in the year 1976 of August 18. So this decree prohibits the deliberate dumping of waste and other harmful materials into the country's marine and inland waters unless permitted under specific circumstances. It aims to preserve aquatic ecosystems by controlling pollution from vessels, coastal facilities, and industrial activities. Enforcement is typically handled by agencies such as the PCG or our Philippine Coast Guard. So another example scenario for this law is a shipping company is fined after one of its vessels is caught illegally discharging oil waste into Manila Bay without Coast Guard approval. So the explanation of this is that the illegal dumping directly violates the decree, which aims to protect marine ecosystems from hazardous pollution. Permits are required for such actions, especially when involving hazardous materials. The third one is the Water Code of the Philippines, or the Presidential Decree number 1067 in the year 1976 of December 31. The Water Code governs the ownership, the use, development, and the conservation of water resources. It mandates the issuance of permits of water extraction or usage and sets standards for water utilization across domestic, agricultural, and industrial sectors. The code also establishes stream bark easements to prevent environmental degradation and flooding. The water permit specifies, among others, the number one is the maximum amount and rate, as well as a schedule of water diversion or withdrawal, the location of wells, place of use, and the purposes of water use. So in the stream bank easement zones of 3 meters for urban areas, 20 meters for agricultural areas, and 40 meters for forest areas along the entire length of the rivers and streams are also mandated under Article 51 of this code. An example scenario of this is an agriculture corporation drills a deep well to irrigate its fields but is ordered to stop after failing to obtain a water permit from the National Water Resources Board. The explanation of this scenario is that the company violated the requirement for a water permit, which ensures equitable and sustainable water use. The law helps regulate access and prevent overexploitation of water resources. The next one is the Toxic Substances and Hazardous and Nuclear Wastes Control Act of 1999, the Republic Act number 6969, the importation, manufacturing, processing, sale, distribution, use, and disposal of substances that pose an unreasonable risk and or injury to the health of the people and the environment are prohibited under this act. All chemicals being presently imported, manufactured, or used in the country are listed in an inventory with full details, and any new substances must undergo pre-manufacturing or pre-importation regulations. So this law regulates the importation, manufacture, the handling, and disposal of toxic and hazardous substances to prevent threats to human health and the environment. It includes strict inventory requirements requiring prior approval for new substances through a pre-manufacturing or pre-importation notification system. Another example scenario is a manufacturing plant is penalized for importing and using an industrial chemical not listed in the National Chemical Inventory without undergoing pre-importation approval. The explanation of this is that this violates RE 6969 or the Republic Act 6969, which ensures all toxic substances are identified, assessed, and safely managed before use in the country, and is keeping registration risks, public health, and the environment. The next law is the Philippine Clean Air Act of 1999, the Republic Act number 8749, One of the salient features of this act is the establishment of a multi-sectoral integrated air quality improvement framework and air quality control action plan, which will serve as the primary guide for air pollution management and control in the country. Adopting a multi-sectoral or participatory approach, also called partnership approach to healthy air or people-driven approach, means that ideas and comments should be gathered from all stakeholders and information is largely disclosed to the public. Alongside many other regulatory measures, all sources of air pollutant emissions are also mandated by this act to secure a permit to operate apart from the Environmental Compliance Certificate or the ECC. Importantly, this act sets the emission limits for various types of pollutants, both stationary and mobile, including smoking, fuel and fuel additives, ozone-depleting substances, greenhouse gases, and organic pollutants, among many others. So the Clean Air Act establishes a framework for comprehensive air quality management, including setting emission limits for industries and vehicles, banning certain pollutants, and encouraging public participation. It requires sources of emissions to secure a permit to operate and ensure public access to air quality and information. And a scenario or example scenario is a factory is issued a cease and desist order for emitting black smoke beyond allowable limits and operating without an air pollution permit. So the explanation of this is that the factory breached air quality standards and permits regulations under this act. The law ensures pollutant levels from factories and vehicles are monitored and controlled. The next one is the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000 or the Republic Act number 9003. So aimed at establishing a nationwide ecological solid waste management program, this act provides for the furtherance of proper segregation, collecting and transport, recycling, and composting of wastes in the Philippines. Under the Article 6 of the Republic Act 9003 promulgates the guidelines for a comprehensive waste management strategy, including but not limited to prohibition of open dumps, requiring a permit for solid waste management facility construction and expansion, guidelines for controlled dumps, and criteria for siting, establishments, and operations of sanitary landfills in the country. So this act provides the legal basis for systemic waste management in the Philippines. It promotes proper segregation at source, recycling, composting, and environmentally sound disposal practices. It prohibits open dumping and sets standards for the creation and operation of sanitary landfills. Like for example, a barangay sets up a materials recovery facility or the MRF and launches a program for household waste segregation into biodegradable and non-biodegradable. This aligns with the Republic Act 9003's goal of reducing landfill waste and promoting eco-friendly waste practices, and barangays plays a vital role in implementing local waste management programs. And lastly, with last law is the Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004 or the Republic Act number 9275. The Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004 is the comprehensive strategy for the protection and conservation of the country's water resources, both freshwater and marine. This act requires the acquisition of water pollution permits through the wastewater charge system, which ensures that there are no unauthorized, undocumented, and unregulated discharges in any water body in the country or in the Philippines. Project and program proponents are also required to establish an Environmental Guarantee Fund or the EGF in order to finance the preservation and or rehabilitation of the health of the affected ecosystems, especially that of the watersheds and aquifers, among others. All persons or organizations that cause pollution are likewise required to clean up any pollution they have caused at their own expense. So this law aims to protect the country's water bodies from pollution through a comprehensive water quality management approach. It enforces pollution permits, wastewater charges, and the establishment of environmental funds for rehabilitation. It requires polluters to clean up affected water bodies and helps preserve watersheds and aquatic ecosystem. An example scenario of this is a mining company is ordered to pay for the cleanup of a river polluted by chemical waste from its operations and to establish an environment guarantee fund. So the explanation of this is that the company violated the act by discouraging pollutants without proper treatment or permits, and the law holds polluters accountable and ensures affected ecosystems are restored. So in conclusion, these laws reflect the Philippines' commitment to safeguarding public health, preserving biodiversity, and ensuring sustainable development. However, laws are only effective when they are properly implemented and respected by every sector of society. So it is our collective responsibility to remain aware, comply with, and advocate for stronger environmental policies in our communities. That's the end of our report. Thank you for listening.